Hi, Jim from Art and Metal here. A quick video to show you how to install the Quick Connect on the Backhoe. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is remove the bucket from the Backhoe. The quickest way I've found to do that is to bring the boom up and allow it to swivel down. So I'll just do that now. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, if you can zoom in on this, we need to remove the bolts here and on the other side. This one here and this one here. Now if you don't have a thumb, you will have a smaller pin and you won't have this bolt to remove. So I'll just go ahead and remove those. The reason I brought the boom up and swiveled it out is just so we can got easy access to the bolts, and I've loosened these two beforehand, so you need to keep a hold of these because we'll be reinstalling them when we put the Quick Connect on. And the bolt from the final pin. So the next thing we need to do is remove the cap from the long pin because we've got a thumb. If you don't have a thumb installed, the pin will look like this one here and it'll be shorter. And we'll go through the differences in the pins once we have the bucket off. Now this is a 12mm spanner, so the pivot pin is all 12mm, the small bolts are 10mm. So we need to pull this pin out, just a bit of a jiggle, and remove the pin. Now this is going to swing down once I release this, and there we go. So there's the long pin. Now what I'll just do is put the bucket on the ground. And we remove the rear pin from the bucket. Okay, so these are all our pins. This is the pivot pin that came out of the thumb, and these are your two regular pins. Now, without the thumb, you get two of these pins that bolt into the bucket through the backhoe, as such. When the thumb's on, it's wider, so Kubota supply you this additional pin, which is the one we've just taken off. And that goes into the second smaller hole. That bolts on there and goes such. So if you have the thumb, you should have been supplied one of these pins that you never knew what to do with. And what we're going to do is install that one here in the bucket. Now in the bucket we can either use the Kubota pin, or these pins are Backhoe B80 pins. They're a Cat 2 top link pin, and they're the perfect size for doing this. Now I recommend that you get at least one of these pins to use with the Quick Connect. The reason being is that when the bucket goes on, and we'll just do that with the Quick Connect. Quick Connect comes in, and you've got your fixed pin at the rear, and it slides in, and you need to put a pin in to hold the implement. If you're using a Kubota pin, there's nothing that stops that pin falling out, and you have to bolt it in. Now, because the rear pin is always fixed, I recommend you use your spare Kubota pin if you have one, or get a couple from Kubota. And the part numbers were in the email for the Quick Connect. You can use a pair of the B80 pins if you like, and they're slightly cheaper. These are about $10 retail. Now, first thing to do, now you've got your bucket off, is to check the clearances on these holes. Some of the buckets are slightly smaller, and you may need to ream this hole out. And you can use a rotary burr or a Dremel to do that, to short pinch a file. For those that don't know what a rotary burr is, I'll go and get one right now for you. Alright, so this is a rotary burr. You can get them at just about any fastener shop or hardware shop for about under $10. Just give you a good shot of that. That's just fitted to a $30 super cheap air grinder, or die grinder, sorry. And all you need to do is just go around on the inside and just take 0.4 of a millimetre off. Some of the buckets are 25 mil, where these pins are 25.4. So once you've had a little bit of wear on your bucket, you'll find there's a little bit of slop there anyway. The Kubota spec allows that to go out to 30 mil. So just check that the pins that you're using actually fit before we go any further. Alright, so just recapping, that's the longer pin for the thumb, they're your regular Kubota pins, your short ones, and the Backhoe B80 pins. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install the Quick Connect. The open section goes to the rear, or pointed to me at the moment. The first thing we're going to do is use the small pin and put it on the, and we line up the hole. We get the larger of our 3 nut and bolts and pop that through. Now I'm just going to do this up finger tight to start with, till we get everything aligned. Now this is a fairly simple exercise. If you don't have the thumb, it's just a matter of popping this pin in and bolting him on. If you do have the thumb, you've got to line up 3 holes, and it's a little bit more of a struggle. We'll go ahead and do that. So I found the easiest way is to get it onto the thumb first with a little bit of the pin sticking out. Align these two so it's sticking through, and just jiggle it around a bit until you get that pin to engage. So when you come through to the other side, you need a little bit of jiggling, and take that home. And when you're installing these bolts to retain the pins, have the nuts on the outside. It just allows a little more clearance for the boom. Just found sometimes it can hit the bolts with debris and stuff and bend them up. You can probably see this pin of mine's been bent up a bit by debris. Okay, now we need to install the piece on the other side. We put a little plate over and just get that started with our 12mm bolt. The same thing again. We put our bolt through from the inside of the Quick Connect and bring it through the pin. And just nip that up to the end. Alright, Alright, so everything's on, just give it a little bit of a jiggle. Now we'll tighten things up. .12mm spanner or socket on this one. Doesn't need to be super tight. And you'll feel it all pull together when you do this. Okay, so that's that. Do up the bolt. Okay, and then around to the other side. And same thing again, we do up this second bolt. This one's a little more difficult on mine because I've got this all bent up from debris that I've hit. Alright, there we go. And then the rear bolt. This one's a 12mm. Okay, so the quick connect is now installed. We'll go back to the bucket and our original Kubota pin. So we're going to install this back in the bucket, and it just goes in as before, and a bolt to retain it. Now I got the pin delivered with the tractor, but no bolt, so I'm just using a generic bolt here. Just tighten that up and put a second nut on it. Just hold everything in place. And nip that up. Okay. So while you've got your bucket off, you've got it on the ground, it's a good idea to check your teeth. So let's put a spanner on these, just give them a wiggle in case they're loose, and you may need to do these up. I find that these come loose about every 15 to 20 hours and you just need to nip them up. So good idea to put a rattle gun on those and just check them out. So our bucket is now ready to use on the quick connect. Now when we use the quick connect, I find it the simplest is to tilt it up, so I'm going to do that first. So if you tilt the quick connect up, grab your bucket and slide him on. And by tilting it up, makes the bucket pivot into the plate. This is our Backhoe B80 pin. in it goes. And put on the lock, and we're on. So if you've also got the ripper, we'll change over to the ripper. I'll show you that. Keeping that pin here. So again, it needs a fixed pin. So we're going to put one of the B80 pins in the back here. So it winds up the same as the bucket. I recommend that you go and buy an extra one of these pins, just so you don't have the slop and the possibility of losing the retaining ring. So installing it's the same way. Drop it on, pop the pin through, and do up your nut. So some people have also tried to pick this up while being on the machine, so we'll go through how to do that next. Now another word is that you might find your dealership doesn't have the B80 pin and they've got this one, and the part number for this Backhoe pin is in the email that you would have been sent. It's just slightly longer. It's about the same price. You can use it effectively, but you can see that it sticks out a little bit longer. It's fine in a pinch. They're worth about $9. So, and I'll install this around the other way so you can see. Now some people like it with the handle. It does stick out that far when you pull it all the way back, so there's nothing stopping you drilling a hole and shortening this pin down if that's in a pinch. And you can fold that handle back. That works out okay, but what I've found is that if the handle's sort of out there, it tends to get ripped off when you're going through roots and stuff anyway. And I've got a second one here that I was using. That's the exact same pin, and as you can see, the handle got ripped off that. It's somewhere embedded in a tree stump or deep in a hole somewhere. So you can use the longer pin, but the best fitting is the slightly shorter B80 pin. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll reposition things, and then we'll show you how to put the bucket on while you're sitting in the seat. Alright, so we've got our bucket with our fixed pin installed. Now traditionally, when you're using Quick Connect with a larger excavator, the Quick Connect, the open section is at the rear, and that's mainly due to the fact that you get a hydraulic locking mechanism that we don't have on this backhoe. So picking it up with leaving the bucket like this is rather difficult because you have to get over the top where you can't see it and hook it. So the easiest way to do this is when you're using your implements, just leave your bucket flat on the floor. So we're going to go and start up now. As before, put out our pin. And that's how you pick up the bucket sitting on the excavator. I personally don't do it because the buckets are so light, and you've got to get off to put the pin in anyway. So, but if you've got a very heavy implement, like a post hole digger or something like that, I advise that you lay it flat instead of laying it up, or at least get the hitch so that it's at 45 degrees or so you can come in. I'll just show you another look. If you try and come in this way, you're not going to hook it on the bucket. So the bucket itself has got this big circular section, so the bucket needs to be at 45 odd degrees to the hitch before it'll engage. And that's another reason that if you have a look at the quick hitch itself, this rounded section locks in with the top of the bucket, so if you lose your back pin, it's going to wobble a lot, but it's physically not going to come out until you bring the bucket up to 45 degrees. With a different implement, like the Ripper, you can easily pick it up at just about any angle, but it's a lot more difficult if you don't have it laying on the front. If you lay this down, it's a lot easier to come in and lift up than if the implement is up here to come in and lift up. Alright, thank you.